Today we're going to be discussing Shaye Grows. She was a 27-year-old mother, also a big fan of true crime. And not just somebody who's interested in true crime. Somebody who is obsessed with serial killers. To the point that she had art prints, paintings, of famous serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, Rose West, and Myra Henley up on her bedroom wall. This woman murdered her 25-year-old on-again off-again boyfriend, Frankie Fitzgerald. Now, was this murder a crime of passion or something that she had wanted to do for a long time? On July 17, 2022, police responded to a call that led them to a home on Botley Drive. This was located in a large suburb in Hampshire, which is in the UK. It was just before or right around 8 a.m. when police arrived. They knocked on the door and a girl answered the door who was wearing a pink robe, hair pulled back in a bun, face tattoos everywhere. The cops said, "We received a call saying somebody here had their throat slashed." As soon as Shaye heard this, she knew that she was screwed. Police enter the home, and as they move through the home they notice that there's a very strong smell of bleach. As they go upstairs, they see why. Shaye had stabbed her 25-year-old boyfriend, Frankie Fitzgerald, to death in her bed. And the smell of bleach was from her trying to clean up the crime scene. Shaye tells police, "Yes, I did take a life, but it was in self-defense. I was even going to call you myself, but I just had a lot going on. I didn't know what to do. I was overwhelmed." She then goes on to tell police that she and her boyfriend had gotten into a fight. She tells them that she had gone through his phone and she had seen some texts between him and another girl. So she confronts him. He gets enraged and he starts to strangle her. Shaye was arrested. It was clear that Shaye had known that her fate was sealed. Now what happened next? Shaye had two different versions of events that day. They were similar in some ways, but they were different enough that one made her look a lot less guilty and one totally destroyed her defense. But let's start with her defense. The explanation revealed at trial is that she and Frankie had been hanging out drinking and doing cocaine the night before when they got into a fight. She says they went to bed angry and that once he was asleep, she went through his phone and she saw some Snapchat messages between Frankie and a 13-year-old girl. She said that when she saw these, she was pissed. This tipped her over the edge and that she woke him up. She called him a pedo. She told him that she was going to post some incriminating videos of him on the internet as a punishment for what he was doing. She says as a response to this, Frankie went into a rage and she could tell by his eyes that something was different and he was going to hurt her. She says that he grabbed her by the throat, slammed her into her headboard, and started strangling her until her vision went blurry. She says at this moment she knew he was going to kill her and she had to do something to get him to stop. She says that she reached for an object on her bookshelf that was next to the bed and she thought she was reaching for a money box and she was just going to use that to hit him just to get him off of. But what she grabbed instead was a dagger. She took the dagger and she hit him in the neck. She said she didn't even realize that she had stabbed him at that point, but then he rolled off of her and he kind of stood up and leaned up into the wall and then slowly slid down the wall. And eventually he wasn't moving at all. And the only movement that was happening was blood that was bubbling out of his neck. She said that she realized his chest was no longer moving and that she had killed him. So in response to get the bubbling to stop, she stabbed him in the chest. She stabbed him twice while he was on the floor. So that's one version of events, but that's not the story that Shaye told her friends. So that morning after committing this murder, Shaye decides to call her friend Vicky and they just have a really casual video chat. Vicky says that Shaye acted totally normal and they just chatted away. She said that things took a turn though and Shaye went upstairs and she was like, "Listen, I want to tell you something. I want to show you something big, but you have to promise not to tell anyone." She then proceeded to show Vicky Frankie's dead body. Vicky said at first she thought this was a joke because Shaye did have a dark and twisted sense of humor. But as she looked at the scene, she realized that it wasn't because Frankie was wrapped up in a duvet cover and he was laying on top of plastic bags. And if that wasn't enough to let her know that this was serious, Shaye made a point to, on more than one occasion, show Vicky a close-up of the wound to Frankie's throat. Vicky said, "I don't think I really grasped what happened earlier. The gash was so deep. It was enormous. I watch crime scenes, but this is too real. There was a massive gash in his neck." Shaye tells Vicky the two had gotten into a fight the night before over an ex-boyfriend of hers, and they had gone to bed angry. Once Frankie was asleep, she had gotten his phone. She had gone through his phone, and that's when she found the messages between him and a 13-year-old girl. She said that it tipped her over the edge and she lost it. She says she reached over, she grabbed the dagger, and she stabbed him in the neck while he slept. Shaye said, "I was angry, upset, and confused." Shaye did try to make her friend think that she wasn't the biggest piece of human crap by justifying what she did. She sent Vicky some video files. It was 3 video files, and in these videos, it appeared that Frankie was raping her. Shaye then went on to send out some texts to try to create an alibi. She cleaned up the scene, and she had plans to bury Frankie in her garden and make family think that he just ran away and took his own life. But Vicky decided to call the cops. The cops showed up, and they arrested Shaye. Now, a few notable things came out at trial. One huge one was that those video files that Shaye had sent over to Vicky, the video files that showed that he was abusive and had raped her, and all the things that she had said, they were edited. Police had found the full-length video that came from a consensual sexual encounter because Shaye and Frankie engaged in BDSM. And she had taken this footage from this consensual adult sexual encounter that even included safe words, and she had edited it to make it look like he raped her to help mount her defense. In addition to that 13-year-old that Shaye says she found messages between, it turns out that as soon as this girl told Frankie she was 13 years old, he blocked her. And it turns out the girl wasn't even 13, she was 17, but that hardly matters. Shaye was found guilty of the murder of Frankie Fitzgerald and she was given life in prison and she has to serve a minimum of 23 years before she is eligible for release. Now, this is just a short version of a much more complicated case. Groves ended up stabbing her boyfriend over 17 times. If you like to hear cases like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.